like we're all in the Zoom room. So tech host, it looks like I am currently enabled as a co-host, yes? Okay.
Yep, you are.
Perfect. All right, so let us start the live streaming. Hello to all of our readers and viewers for the Boston Poetry Marathon 2020. I am Christina Liu. I'm so sorry. Our MC for this hour is the fabulous Suzanne Mercury. Thank you, Suzanne. And our organizers, to give a shout out for this year's Boston Poetry Marathon online for 2020 are yours truly, Suzanne Mercury, Xtina Strong, and Bridget Eileen. Thank you to the organizers. Thank you to our volunteers for the weekend, Tom Daly, Tim Geiger, Gilmore Tammy, Joe Elliott, Douglas Rothschild, and especially to Chad Parental, who's helping as a special assistant to Carol Weston, as well as a tech host. We're streaming live currently to our Facebook page at Boston Poetry Marathon, our Twitter via Periscope at Boss Poetry Mara, and live on our YouTube channel. For links to these broadcasts, go to bostonpoetrymarathon.wordpress.com/watch. This year's Boston Poetry Marathon is a fundraiser for local organizations that work for racial justice in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. Donations will go to Sister Fire Rhode Island and the Urban League of Eastern Massachusetts. Admission to the Boston Poetry Marathon is free, but a $10 or more donation to our fundraiser is recommended and is very highly appreciated. Go to bostonpoetrymarathon.wordpress.com/donate for more information. Go to the pin post or the bios in our social media for these links as well. You can't miss us. Though we can't be together in person for these readings and the breaks in between, we encourage all of our participants and viewers to share selfies, screenshots, old photos, memories, and comments on our social media. Please use hashtag Boston Poetry Marathon. Tag us at Boston Poetry Marathon on Instagram and Facebook, and at Boss Poetry Mara on Twitter. A reminder to our readers that we have 8 minutes each, and those 8 minutes start as soon as you introduce your poem. So anything that is a preamble to your poetry is considered part of the 8-minute talk. I will be timing the readings. Readers, make sure that your chat window is open right now. And I'll give you all a moment to open up your chat windows. Perfect.
Oh, here.
Please make sure that your camera is directed at your entire face, especially your mouth, and also make sure you are well lit. We had a really engaging conversation about that. I'm going to introduce the readers of the hour right now. Reader, when I say your name, please give a short greeting so that we may have a sound check. Okay. Andrew K. Peterson.
Hi, short greeting.
Hello. Perfect. Short and sweet, Jordan Davis.
Hi, this is Jordan.
Hi, Jordan. Maria Damon.
Hi, this is me, the only chick other than our MC in this clump.
Happy to be in the clump with you.
Likewise.
We're a good clump.
We are a good clump. It takes 3 or more. Mark Lamoureux.
Right here.
Nice to meet you. I've heard a lot about you. Aaron Kiely.
Where's Aaron?
Like Aaron is not here right now with us. Perhaps we'll join.
Aaron hasn't made it in yet, but I'm troubleshooting that.
That's all right. Hopefully he'll join us soon. Douglas Rothschild.
Yeah, that would be me. I was just working, but now I'm not working anymore.
Oh.
The cleaner called me from the laundromat.
And then it looks like last but not least, David Kirschenbaum. Very nice to meet you. Can you hear me?
You too. Can I go first?
David, I think Were you scheduled for tonight's slot, or were you
Yeah,
changed at last moment?
he was the last guy last hour.
Oh, that's right. So certainly, I think you could go first as long as Andrew Peterson is okay with that. Thank you for your graciousness, Andrew. I appreciate it. Nice. All right. So with all these introductions, let's start the reading. So David, we're looking forward to hearing from you. David, we're ready for you.
I'm here. I'm waiting.
Okay.
Okay. Hey, everybody. The ladies wanted to hear about history, so I thought I would read from Instant Zine that I put out for the first festival in '98. I'm going to read my editorial and then some of the work from the other poets in it who took part that year. It's nearing 6 a.m. and this Instant Zine is almost done. Just these words which come slowly when the head's jammed in production, not edit mode. Here goes. I heard, no read about the Boston Alternative, Aaron Ugg, poetry conference back at the Poetry Project Symposium in May. When that Saturday night's reading ended, we did the Poet Shuffle, waiting to follow that night's decision maker, Poproj persona numero dos, Marcella Durand, and headed to her favorite post-reading bar, the Grassroots over in St. Mark's, with her husband, the artist Rich Russa, the poets Douglas Rothschild and Dan Bouchard, and myself. A few rounds in, after an in from Boston area Bouchard mentioned the event, I pulled out the flyer and us New Yorkers all slurred aloud. Who the hell is Aaron Kiely? That Monday, I called Aaron up to find out if I could take part in the proceedings and listened as he responded to my query that he organized the event because he'd been tired of having to wait for Will Alexander to come to town to read poetry. So instead, Aaron brought him here. I can't say I know Aaron well because I don't, but I know sincerity when I see it, and I know passion when I see it too. And I know commitment when I witness it come pouring through him on days so hot they should be in a Spike Lee movie. In an era of waiting, Aaron didn't. And in the end, that is why this zine, my first instant one in 3.5 years, exists. Because if Aaron wasn't waiting, I didn't think I had the right to either. So here's Aaron's poem from that zine, and it's the first time I ever published Aaron. Poem 2. Every turning his but one, the stars, turn to the cap of a melody, his but one face, turning to raise friends, where out one, where one poem the blessed does fallen, as if from a huge sky, out front a force of power, all on a single line, and no power unfathomable, as his own, either in dust but awake, he says thank you, for first degree a blind stone, and his liking, a trail to today, no name separate to glow, each dying, his arrival to be named out, each face is longing, faithful to the core, each spark with the absolute, and a blemish of time of face on top. And here's a poem from Will Alexander, who's why Aaron started this thing. Will Alexander, excerpt from the Brimstone Boat for Philip Lamantia. Because Philip, in the transparency of birds, you perceive an angle of rudiments, a blaze of unspecified omegas, dialectically related to utopian aromatics, where desire is spontaneously conflagrant as it elevates its grasp of blazing, which allows you to magically emit a root of dialogical forces. Therefore, you are he who disrupts the law of the bastions, of naked imperial acquisition, of the saviors myrmidons, of the lice eaters bound to the blood form of the crucifix. Your compass, a blaze of torched calendrics, blackened so as to coax the raw arrows, auks and gulls and terns, that is because the ethers exist as cutaneous hydrogen in rain. And here's the first poem of Sean Cole's that I ever published. It, which is weird. Something weird above me. I can hear her shoo her cat from the pen I also loaned her. It's weird what transpired between us. It was 3 months ago. Something weird sat on my sofa saying, with her lonely tenor voice, set the clicker for Victor Borgia, ended up with Deepak Chopra. Weird. I hugged something weird right before coming down here to write this down. Since it's weird to hug her as much as I can, I do. I find I keep tapping her shoulders like a homeroom drummer. Pat her face. It takes hours to say so long to each other. 2 weeks ago, something weird waned from the heat she'd apparently been experiencing. Started seeing someone weird. I met him. It was weird the way this was days after my finding someone to be privy to the other reasons for my body. Weird the way I didn't cave in at the vision of the kiss they gave each other. Weird the congratulations we slapped into each other's hands. Some moments ago, something weird came up to me and said, "Remember?" Before I left her apartment to come down here to write this down. Well, she didn't say it. So was it remember or remember? I'm not sure. She locked onto my shoulder with her lashes. Before I left, she wrapped something slick around my eyeballs, handed me something close and said something that sounded like, "I left you forks." And here's one from Lisa Jarneau. On the lemur. That they love to go on unmistaken, that they love to not be gratuitous or cry, that they love the fortitude of yaks, that suddenly they love the whiskey and the sunlight and the key, that they love the corn cow and the cow corn that it ate, that they love the cat poo as it rolled across the floor, that they liked and loved the coffee that was warm inside the day, that they loved the sound of hail and what it broke, that they knew they loved the river that was made where people dream, that they loved the loins of lions and of lambs, that they loved confusion and the tools and poems not made up inside with snails, that they loved the whistle of the evening train, that they loved the drugs they dreamt they loved and took inside the dreams, that they loved their pictures taken in the insides of barns, that they loved all outer space. And one last one, a short one from the first Boston poet that I ever met, Dan Bouchard. This is Dan Bouchard's Frank Sinatra is Dead. Shopping malls sprang up across the city before the economic boom went bust last year. They are a favorite target of rioters. Most people were too poor ever to shop there. The staff of the International Monetary Fund left Jakarta before dawn on a chartered plane. At the fired malls, some people sifted ashes for things. So thanks everybody. And if you get a chance, go check out the new boogcity.com, a great Anne Waldman tribute issue on her turning 75.
Thank you so much, David. I love the image of the loins of lions and lambs. That will definitely stay in my memory tonight. That was lovely. Thank you. Next, we have Andrew Peterson.
Hello. So nice to be back with you all. So I was a co-wrangler, I guess back in 2017 at the Boston Poetry Marathon, and I've been attending and reading for the previous 4 or 5 years. So this piece that I'm going to read is a gathering of Joe Brainerd style memories from all of those years kind of jumbled together. My BPM. I remember at my first marathon feeling like the only stranger in the room. My excitement and awkwardness axis clearly off its wobble, a guest in this space of possibility. I remember meeting Bridget Eileen during the break at Bukowski's, bonding over South Shore childhoods, meeting Kiely and the time she fell asleep on John Wiener's grave in Milton Cemetery. I remember talking asemic writing with Michael Peters at Thirsty Scholar, 80s baseball poems with Doug Rothschild at Hobson Scotch, and gossip with Donald Vincent at Starlight Lounge. Hanging with Mr. Hip always made me feel sexy and vital as a lunch poem. I remember sitting on the ground next to Christie Towers at Outpost, listening to the voices in the other room, feeling closer to anything than I was. I remember the best seated Outpost was halfway up the hallway stairs. It made me feel like I was with the cool kids. I think there was a therapist's office above, and I imagine how awful it would feel leaving therapy to find a bunch of sweaty poets blocking the way. Cool kids equals sweaty poets. I remember the heat. Oh, and that the other best spot was by the back window, cool air from the floor vent, but you could also hear the bathroom noises. I remember before the women took over the over the organizing, rarely enough paper products. I remember Molly Maguire ending Saturday night's reading by leading a group fart. I remember Maria Damon's flower-stitched kerchiefs passed around. I remember Bridget asking in front of a table of poets at the Druid, "Do you write any happy poems?" I stared at the ceiling and answered, "Let me think about that." I still am. I remember wanting to respond, "They're all happy because I don't die at the end," but melodrama doesn't suit me, maybe. I remember Kenning Garcia. How many bars does it take to walk into a new life? I'm still counting. I remember wondering if Jim Burley has any shirts that aren't sports uniforms, and at what level of irony Jim is operating by wearing them, and who Jim really roots for or against, besides the Boston, Best American Poetry Anthology, I guess. I remember Florine Melnick's Sestina with those fabulous repeats. John Ashbery, Avuncular, Scrotum, Daisies, Fleabag, and that we talked at length about cheese. I remember Jean-Denis Joachim's voice, unbroken spider silk spun across a Haitian garden in a midnight thunderstorm. I remember Mark Lamoureux's spiral-shaped poem and that red beard like a present-day Whalen. Hope waves, stars, words, fearless and free. The beard's gone, I guess. I remember the best feeling was when you heard an audience member go, when you read. I remember wishing I could do with poetry what Sam Cha does with poetry, the way Sam says the word heart, with balance, with feeling, and with reason. I remember seeing someone's schedule one year and handwritten beside my name, the word no. I remember Suzanne Mercury leaning back against the piano on a Saturday afternoon in a midnight blue dress, arms spread wide across the ivories, a sultrier than thou Lauren Bacall dazzle in sunglasses. I remember designing the rainbow Gertrude Stein flyer, eclipse viewing glasses, fidget spinners, while on the sly at work. My desk was by the copy machine. The sound of printing gave me warning to minimize so I wouldn't be discovered. I remember a phone call with John Mulrooney standing in a hot parking lot outside my office, asking him for direction on how fuck you organize one of these poetry marathons. John's advice, spreadsheets. I remember the punchline to the joke told to Lloyd Schwartz by guys getting high in a parking lot because he looked like Jerry Garcia. Eileen. I forget the setup. I remember burning out quick from organizing by trying to respond to every single email. I remember Katie Raditz's Roadhouse-inspired encouragements. If Patrick Swayze can find some time to do Tai Chi in his loft barn apartment, we can all try a little harder, don't you think? I remember White Wine, Black Sabbath, self-soothe. I remember hurting a friend unintentionally by accidentally excluding her, and my shame and the anger at myself, part that I played in miscommunicating, and John Cage's diary, How to Improve the World, You Will Only Make Matters Worse. I remember Gilmore Tamney's haiku, there's what I say, then there's what you want to hear, and there's what happened. I remember Audrey Mardovich arriving straight from the Common with reports of the free speech demonstration, 12 Nazis, 10,000 good guys, and wear it like a pin pointed straight at the heart. I remember someone handing out This Machine Kills Fascists ballpoint pens. Mine didn't work, but anyway, I keep trying. I remember how Tom Daly listens with calligraphy. I remember Ellen Steinbaum's Why There Aren't Right-Wing Poems asks, who writes the poems for war? I remember hoping Tony B for president. I remember being excited to catch up with Charlotte Seeley, but she was grouchy from the heat and I was hungover, and her line, give me room so I can shatter. I remember the most rewarding feeling is hearing a first-time poet lift the room with her words, the welcoming of new teammates, the sound of friends getting it together in the restaurant. I remember there's a point every year when the poems start to sound like they're all one being, breathing from within the same time-space continuousness, or maybe that we're all just so unoriginal. The beauty is our difference in this weird and frictive universe, which we are all a part of. I remember taking the Monday after off the day of the great American eclipse. Through the trees in JFK Park, I took selfies with that thin donut of light, and ended up in an ophthalmologist's office the next day. I forgot those glasses. Sorry, Gertrude. I remember it being discouraged to thank the organizers during your set. Still, so many poets thank them anyway. So thank you. I remember the end of Anna Kreinberg's Seattle. My poetry, I mean poetry, capital P, writ large across the sky, is approachable like grocery store aisles, labels and dictations, words flowing across your map. This is a place where sea creatures could crawl out of the water like an etching and start a new life on land. Other people's words are the tonic to blush. I remember writing this thinking, is this a happy poem? I remember the movie of my life where I die at the end. I'll be a talking deer, skull-tipped and ecliptic, in colors and passing flights. And I'll remember Jim Dunn's reading glasses. Thank you all so much.
Oh my God,
Thank you.
Oh,
Andrew, that was amazing. I mean, as a newbie of sorts to the Boston Poetry Marathon, I cannot think of a more fitting ode for a Friday night. You also made Suzanne's night, so kudos to you. All right, thank you so much. Next up, we have Mr. Jordan Davis. Jordan, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. This is a poem called The Scatterer. The scatterer looked over at me and smiled, the eyes bent slightly as if considering to include a gesture of apology or to articulate a justification. I looked back blankly, indifferent, perhaps even a little insolent about this latest reversal. The truth was, I enjoyed the fatigue in my shoulders and my legs. I clung to them as to an icon, a gift from someone who believes in the power of signs and their eventual delivery to justice and reward earned by persistent showing up and listening and getting what is called work, what is called done. A gift from someone who says they love me, who has not yet been visited by the scatterer, who has not yet betrayed me either by wanting more from someone else or wanting less. The struggle with maturation, growing up, is partly a wish to evade mortality, partly a refusal to accept that survival means compromise, and partly the paralysis of choice, of irrevocability, a word so close to vocabulary it often refuses to be seen near it. The darkness ended late that morning. I was immersed in a bath of global networks of dark money, hot money, blood money, well-washed money. It was not my money. I could look, but not touch, the kind of relationship you can use as a sleep aid, but not much more. Sometimes we look at the money together and read no more that day. Today is not that day. It is a mitzvah to eat. The heart opens and shuts like a jewelry box. There are signs that when new and wet resemble poems, then they dry and circulate, and the whole shebang has to find a curious child to notice them and unwittingly incubate a new world system from them after unimaginable upheaval, just like me. The trunks in the comic book store were stenciled with ads to work for the UN ranch down the street, and I thought about it. I went down the street and checked in, but all the shower rooms were occupied. There was rest, and I took it. I felt the sunlight in the shade and heard the quiet in the gathering wind. I wondered at the base, at the collector, at the emitter. There was a refusal to move, and then as if a switch were flipped, suddenly there was a whole ocean of time and will. We slept as every book read itself aloud, and all of us came to know all of the stories as well as all of the kinds of people in them, as well as all of the kinds of people who tell them. We were training in our traveling to be the capricious authors of entire civilizations. We were training in our infinite sleep. And then, without warning, the train stopped. The silence gets back to me eventually to say no and disappear again. It's reassuring in its way, which is not to reassure. I'm restless and want to reside somewhere adequate and semi-permanent. I want to lean against a wall like a long-established rule for human behaviors with no known persecution side effects. Above all, I wish to stop suffering in this pleasant enough treadmill of not quite living. I love solitude and am terrified of being lonely. So when I'm displaced yet again by the scatterer, what will I be keeping my eye on in the dark? How will that evacuated landscape cry out to me to demand mute companions? Poems with nothing in them are cursed. Poems with too much in them never get off the ground. Poems with the ambitious children of the administrative class reproducing their lifestyle of preening, flattering, playing a single note 4 or 5 times, then evaporating. The silence looks up and nods. What a strange feeling, discouragement. The darkness massed on the horizon where the sun should have sent its blue emissary by now, and the paper and pens and stacks of books gathered patiently for the arrival, but no activity in the customs house, no hum of prayer or foreign language, not even the echo out of time of radio advertisements, the appearance of men in suits and hats, somehow forming an indestructible residue on the high walls and basement bathrooms of time in auditory form, sports scores and hearsay continuing to transmit. Or perhaps these signals were broadcast years ago and are only arriving here in the dark now. At first I prayed for the scatterer, and then she disappeared to another country and I forgot her, and learned to pray by older rules and without names, and now I look to my left, and the dog is licking the air, and I'm unsure what to do next, and more importantly, where to do it. My imaginary friends keep becoming real ones, which creates new vacancies in my imagination, which runs downhill and laughs into the overcast spring sky, currently 4 to 5 months away. How will I get there? On foot? How opposite of charming. I look like a forgotten tennis ball, but I feel like a volunteer strawberry, not a strawberry at all, an aggressive invasive like fire or water or what are the other two? We should write this kind of information down for later use. The way we dry the deer meat we can't eat during the ritual, the great dance and song to thank the language god for the bountiful concepts of time and delayed gratification, which, truth be told, more concepts often feel a bit like scams. But Jeremy from 3 Caves Down says he's working on a chewing gum factory, which will automatically produce toothsome rectangles with dusty geometric patterns on them, wrapped in crisp foil and kept dry for when we're hungry, but for some reason don't wish to eat. I do like chickle. That Jeremy. In the time of the rains, something to look forward to. The plant eater stops and looks into the vegetation with the despairing cynicism of a comic book scholar. My heart listens for the migration, for the magnetic field my restless brain stays tuned to wobble its little thrill and empty the trees, darken the parking lots, overtop the box store roofs with dense, damp insulation. Indoors, it's the flood, miraculously peaceable or generally depressed. I don't have an opinion about it. I just want to feel safe and loved, and that my love is landed. It flies off without me. I search the sky without a contract. Tomorrow, I will rise earlier into a deeper darkness, and the texts will be swaying in a mental breeze, and I will go bask in that solitude until the sun rises, and the call of my love will echo in the distance, and I'll look for it, and wait as long as I can for another sign, although I know one sign is already an allotment. It exists. I'm patient. The plant eater stops and looks, then leaves. The walking. The books formed a tunnel that shook during muffled blasts. I left in the middle of the night and went to the desert, understand? Between the hiss of S and the snore of Z, there is sh and z, z and sh. I felt my way through the dark, very close to you. A book came loose and fell on my head. I tucked it under my arm and pulled you close as we walked. I know what you want, and I want that too. The requirements fill a manual I work to memorize at night. You mentioned a story you loved, and I remember exactly where it is, 3 miles walk from here, and the tunnels may be lost. On the way, I ask you to tell me what you loved. We alternate our glances from our feet to the way ahead. The walking isn't easy, but there's nothing else to do. And suddenly we come into a clearing. Lights in the sky, flickers in the ceiling. Inside your pack, in a bit of foil, there's some chocolate. I have a canteen. Let me tell you my dream, and then you can tell me yours. The name of the law is the walking. The motion itself is important. The body must be part of the world. When I choose not to feel, I'm happy for a while. You walk when it's cold for the fresh air, and when it's hot, you hope for breeze. There still remains the circuit of the sacred mountain, not a tall mountain, and once it was raised into the air. You have to walk to keep the world going. You have to walk somewhere to see where it is. If you want to break the monotony, we can stop and dig some wells. I was going to say there are no rules, but that's not exactly right. There are 10, or 613, or 18, or 1. There are rules and bones scattered in the sand. The spirit has been watching you and wishing you continued motion. The spirit loves continuous motion better than to argue with anybody. I wouldn't call it regret, but I concede some sorrow. The effective solution demands everything convert into its problem. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jordan Davis. Gorgeous, gorgeous reading. Thank you. Next, we have Maria Damon.
Okay, it's an honor to be among these compadres, reflecting on 20 years of Boston Poetry Marathon, which the first one I went to was in Cambridge at the Blacksmith House thing. Aaron Kiely, Jim Burley, Sean Cole, Dan Bouchard, Joseph Lease, were these the first organizers or some configuration thereof? I remember Jack Kimball going nuts over Sean's work, saying he's got something weird, which we just heard from David Kirschenbaum. I was introduced to so many great poets, notably early on Will Alexander and Adina Karasik, whose work I now teach. And at least with Adina, I have now collaborated extensively, and I've written about her work. I remember Will read a poem about chartreuse orchids. And to introduce it, he said, "These are not the kind of orchids you can buy or you can see. They're orchids that you see in your mind." And that was it for me. I was all in for life. Adina read a piece about Jews in Syria, I think, Menahe, Yehuda, Hamas. I had no idea what was going on. It was very visceral and embodied. I turned to Joseph Lease and said, "What the heck is this?" And he said, "I think this is a protest against discourse." And that was it. I was in for life. I shook John Wiener's hand in the hallway of the Mass Art Institute over by Northeastern and the Pizzeria Uno in Boston. I told him it was an honor to meet him, and he responded, "Same here." That was the thrill of a lifetime. I met Jordan Davis, and he got me into the Flarf Collective. I remember Aaron Kiely asking Edwin Torres, "Will you marry me?" And Edwin saying, "I'm sorry, I'm taken, but I'm very flattered." I got to be friends with Joseph Lease and Donna de la Perriere, who then moved and eventually started the Bay Area Poetry Marathon. I got to see and to visit and to know a little bit Jarrett Lansing. I still don't know if it's Jarrett or Garrett. What a marvel. And Carol Weston, whose work was a revelation and continues to be. She's a living connection to the generation of Stephen Jonas and John Wieners and the old guard, but she's a lot more than that. She's our own William Blake. And somebody really should do a collected and get on it. I've talked to Seth Stewart, who's been, done a lot of stuff on John Wieners, but anyway, I met Suzanne Mercury, Ruth Lepson, who my friend Walter had a mad crush on back in the 1970s, Annie Wan, Gilmore Tamney, and Martha McCullough, all of whom I completely adore. And I use Annie's East Coast grill cornbread recipe all the time. It's famous in my little corner of Brooklyn now. I hate to read my work aloud, so I adopted one of Aaron Kiely's performances in which he painted a wall while listening to headphones whose music no one else could hear, while he chewed gum with near maniacal intensity. Remember that, anybody? I took that as my own performance model. I remember Joseph Lease going quietly crazy because he was afraid some paint would get on the floor, but it didn't. So all was well, and that became my thing, stitching with the music on. Only I let people hear it because it's always the Stooges' Funhouse. And I also added the detail of throwing snacks at people. I started to bring cheesecake from the S&S to the readings so that I could justify parking in their lot all day and into the night. Food then became a tradition, and it kills me that I can't share dried fruit and nuts and cheesecake with you this year. And now I want to share, do I have time? I forgot to push the little button. But if I might screen
Yes.
share. Okay.
Thank you for asking, Maria. You have time. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
My current project, which I haven't been able to finish because my loom is at school and school is verboten these days, started as an homage to the poet Anne Blonstein. She, at the time that she died, she was working on a long poem series based on the silkworm genome or the silk genome. So I thought I would do something, I would make something based on the silk genome. So I finally found it, and let me see. I'm now screen sharing. This is it. This is the silkworm genome, and it's 1,757 characters, which I thought would come out to about 4+ yards. It's actually less than that because the yarn I was using is thinner than that. This is slide 2. In order to be able to do this, Anaconda parthenogenesis is something else, but I wanted to integrate it. I broke it down into manageable segments so I could do 12 things at a, 12 wefts at a time, or one at a time, and make my way through this. And I will now show, this is the first inch. This is white silk. I figured silk was right because it was silk. I color-coded the nucleotides, which are the A, G, C, and T. And this is the first inch.
Maria, I don't think we're seeing the images. We're just
Oh, you're
seeing
not?
yeah,
It says I'm now screen sharing. Oh,
you're screen
okay.
sharing. We see the directory, but we don't see
Oh,
the images.
shoot. Okay.
So I
new
think you need
share.
to click on it. I'm not sure how to do that.
Okay. Damn.
Yeah, try double clicking on each specific
Okay.
image.
Try this. Are you
There we
seeing
go.
it now?
Thank you.
Yeah, this is the first inch of the genome. And then we have, can you see that? Is this the next one?
You got wait.
Am I?
Yeah, we're seeing it, but I think you need to double click on each image.
Okay.
Okay,
Um,
but you are sharing. That's
Okay.
the important.
okay. You seeing that? Okay. Yes.
You're rocking, girl.
Okay. Cool. I'll show a few more. This is what it looks like from a distance. So I finished the first sequence. I got, are you seeing that? Okay. I'll just skip to the end. Ah, that's not it. This is the end. All right. I got bored, so I did a few little other things, played with those colors. But basically that's it. Just making a long thing with the silk genome, silkworm genome, Bombyx mori. I might do some playing around with the etymologies of silk. So that's kind of it. That's my homage to Anne Blonstein. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maria. That is beautiful. I love your work.
Really is.
Oh, Maria made me a beautiful shawl. I'm going to go get it.
Ooh, cool. I keep forgetting everyone else is at home too.
Yes. We're not going anywhere.
No kidding.
Maria, thank you. That was gorgeous. I actually am fascinated with the Black Mountain poets, and it's so evocative. I love the science and the counting behind it as well. Love to learn more. All right, thank you. So next we actually have Mark Lamoureux. Are you all set, Mark?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Great. You're welcome.
Hi, everybody. I miss you all, and I love you all. And it's kind of good to have air conditioning. So the first year that I came to the marathon as a participant was 2003. And something that was much on everybody's minds then was the second invasion of Iraq by the United States. And this is a poem from my book of years published by Bill Corbett about 2003. And many of you guys were probably in this poem. 2003. Marching as the planes and ships leave, beating on congos and pickle buckets in the rain, whose streets, footnote, our streets, fall down dead on Boston Common, drumming also the rain on an upended deli container outside the abandoned bathhouse at Salisbury Beach, later beating on the dark skylight too above the long stairs she climbed only once. Ignoble year. War year of Russian Valium and blood-ringing ears, not dying of anything, snakes and ladders and tarantulas maybe, sleeping it off, sweating it out, a quivering eye on a CRT, a sad monk, a wiffle ball whiff in the East Village, a chiming phone, a missed train and a missing season, missing evenings, missing the point and finding bruises. It was kind of a rough year, but that I'll never forget that memory of Bill Corbett and all of us lying down on Boston Common. And of course, I wouldn't be here at the marathon if it weren't for Bill, who, while he never seemed to make an appearance, was definitely a spirit behind all of us, I guess, a mentor or a supporter and publisher of all of us. In 2004, Bill gave me this broadside of a poem of his at Aaron Teeger's 30th birthday party, and this is a poem that echoes other poems, and a poem that I would echo, and a poem that I wrote and sent to him in 2018, just before he died. So this is Bill Corbett, A Shower in June. Peeling a hard-boiled egg, the downpour curls my hair, flick of shell into garbage can, where does memory not intrude? Another June whose roses swung, stitched and gored, the very words across stone swallows this rain and birds' broken song. Memory gorges every single thing. Who are we to forget so much? And this is the poem that I wrote to Bill in 2018, based on the work of another Bill, the pianist Bill Evans. You must believe in spring, for Bill Corbett. Fat drops warp reflection of newly green limbs in the mist. Mother's Day tulips at half-mast. Above me, first birthday girl balloon looms impossibly. A silver sun for the gray day. The baby rises to stand a few seconds, plops back down and pounds her toy piano as Eddie Gomez solos. Of things that come and go, where what you think you know, you can't be certain of. Now she pulls a book from the shelf, Pete Mondrian, earliest works, and fries up a yellow block in a purple plastic pan. A mockingbird alights in the black barbecue grill and shakes rain from its wings. Evans begins again, and my daughter bobs her head off time. Yet another downpour curls my hair, but Bill, the yellow wild irises open just the same. And this next poem was written on the bus ride back from the Boston Poetry Marathon one year. It's called What Creeps from the Hotel Pen. The hotel pen being one I took from the Sheraton Commander Hotel mentioned earlier by Jimmy, where many of us used to hang out, both post-marathon and post other readings. What creeps from the hotel pen. The red horse or memory, or was it blue? Time makes lies of what once was true. Storefronts shed their skin, are different bugs underneath. Cruel cities that manufacture the young ad infinitum. While out the meridian, you are pregnant with your dumb age. What once you said farewell to, you must again, but doubly so. Only death deals the life recall. Quick ones go on diminishing. These streets unchanged by your feet, which are conversely calloused, scraped, worn down to stubs. Hometown shoots by on the highway, 2 seconds long, what its ghost plays for 60 years, while childhood friends turn to ghouls. What comes after, growing ever more exquisite, the doors time slams, waking birds in you, who will not be comforted by the usual means. Outside this cage is another cage, like a giant onion, filled with thunder, lightning, and putrid smells, things that teem with vile stillness. The familiar calcifies, grows knobby horns, even as it nets your every breath. Each sensation becomes an argument against death, who will not be consoled. Goes on smoking virgins, mothers, and poets like cigarettes. Couldn't stop if it wanted to. Good cop to age is bad. Doesn't know its own strength. Rolls you to the floor. Gets up. Goes out looking for more. I'll end on a lighter note. This is a poem I wrote for the Boston Poetry Marathon one year. It's called Prometheus' Birthday for the Boston Poetry Marathon. Once a year, and I always hear this poem in the voice of Joe Elliott for some reason, I don't know why, but once a year, even Prometheus gets a birthday party. Zeus takes the Caucasian eagle out back of Olympus to give it a bath. I'm so hungry, it shrieks, feed me. And unchained beside the rock, Prometheus looks out through the stained glass of his tears and sees trillions and trillions of lit lighters extending in all directions. Thanks, everybody. We love you all.
Thank you so much. I am so hungry, feed me, he says. Mark, I think many of us had a reaction to the yellow wild irises. That's just a really beautiful line. Thank you. Next up, we have Erin Kiely. Let's see if you're unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, great. Thanks. I'm super scared to talk to you all because I have like stage fright because I'm not on stage. So I never have had stage fright reading poems to people. Can you still hear me? Douglas, can you hear me? Okay, good. All right, thumbs up.
Yes, but you can't hear me though.
You're great.
Okay. Okay. So I'm just gonna talk for under 8 minutes. I just want to talk about starting the festival. I first want to say thanks to the 4 organizers for bringing us all here tonight. So I think the best way to say it is that I founded the festival and directed it for 3 years. But you know, me and Sean Cole have been best friends for 30 years or 31 years. And we were best friends back then. And I was 27 when we started the festival. I think Sean was 26. And there wasn't sort of a we to the festival, because I sometimes say we did the festival, and then I sometimes say I did it. I mostly say I did it. And I think I say we did it because Sean might have had the idea to do a festival. And I don't remember, but maybe he can tell you later. But somehow there was an idea to do a festival, and then I got really into that idea. And then I sort of pushed Sean to the side because I had this idea that I had to do this on my own. And so Sean was my right-hand man for all of it and recorded all the festivals, but I emceed them all and made a point of just being obsessive about the vision of how this festival was going to go. It's going to be all me, because I just wanted it to be very easy and loose. Because that's how I felt about it at the time, even though it's very structured. But anyway, so, and then after that, other people took it on. And the fourth year, I started doing the festival again. And I started inviting people again. And then I now was not living in Boston anymore, in Massachusetts anymore, and I was in New York. And I suddenly realized that I wasn't an organizer anymore, that I was a writer. And I'm 49 now, and I realized that I was a writer, not an organizer, when I was about 30. And I dropped the festival completely, and I laid it to Jim Burley. I said, you can pick it up right here and keep all the people that I invited with you and do a festival, or not. And he kept most of those people and did the festival and had other organizers with him maybe that year, and other people just did it every year. One thing I can say about it, just thinking about it now that I was asked to talk about it, which I've never been asked to talk about it, and that we're all here during this horrific year, not because of COVID, horrific year otherwise, and COVID. You know, it's really got me thinking about why I'm here. The fact that you're all talking about a festival you went to for 20 years that I did start is very meaningful to me, and has been for the last 20 years, has been a really central part of my being, that I made this festival. It really has. And it's something I really cling to in my mind, of things I've done and you know, so other than being a father and a writer, number 3 is like a small list of things like this festival that I remember with me my whole, my whole life. So that segues into something I wanted to say. I'm forgetting things that I wanted to say, but I don't want to go over 8 minutes. About sort of why I dropped the festival after doing it 3 years is because I found that I was a writer. But more than that, I found that I was on a quest to be an artist. And I just wanted to say something to all of you writers for a second, that and that maybe this rings true with you or not, but it probably does on some level. I started writing when I was 18. I started writing poems for 3 to 5 hours every day from the age of 18 to the age of 36. And then I sort of slowed down at 36 and wrote a little less every day because I met my wife and other things happened. But over the years, I identify as an artist. That's what I say I am. And I don't say that a million times. I do a little other ones, but I say that because over the years, I identified as a poet initially, and it was very hard for me to say I was a poet when I was about 26, 27. It was hard to get it out of my mouth. And it was hard to identify that way because no one did. And it was hard to be anything like an artist, but it was hard to be a poet because it's a very fringy kind of artist. And what I'm trying to come at now is that people don't call it an artist often, at least in the world I've lived in. And now over the years, I call myself an artist first, a writer second, and a poet almost last. Even though I'm a poet first, that's the writing I do, that's the art I do, but I want to identify to the world as an artist. Because when people say art, here's the crescendo of what I'm trying to say and what I've been thinking I should say to you all for a week, is that when people say arts and fine arts, and you go to school for fine arts and they list arts and arts and arts and arts, it's visual arts, it's fine arts, it's photography, dance, theater, directing films, multimedia, whatever. And it's never in that list, not never, but it's not, I never see poetry in that list. I never see writing, I never see writing novels. I feel like the world at large has put writing as this other thing. You know, and there's writing novels, and there's writing poetry, and there's writing screenplays, but there's writing is sort of other. It's just not called an art enough in my world, in my view. And maybe that's just me. But I just want to invite you all to think about that and to identify yourselves as artists and be like me. No, not to be like me, but to the reason why I identify as an artist, is the last thing I want to say about this, is that I went deep into my art to find myself as a person. And I found myself as an artist. And that's a fringy thing, and a poet is even more fringy. But when I was 27, I could have gone anywhere as a white male. I could have been anything, right? I could be a right-wing cult leader. I could be anything right now. And when I chose in my soul to go at art and to go at it with all my being and to push everything else to the side, and I really did. I compromised a lot of other things in my life, personal relationships for many years, and going after money for many years. I didn't do that now. That has affected me later. But when I went at art, it created my being on this planet. It really made me develop into what I was meant to be. I would have been completely stunted if I had become an artist. And I went at it fully. And when you go at art fully, you become an artist, and you start being comfortable with saying that. And I am totally like Jackson Pollock. I have gone as deeply as every artist you see on PBS that is ever going to be talked about, right? And I don't care if I've become any more known than this screen tonight. But to myself, I have become that artist. And it's important to identify, as, I think, as a writer, as an artist as well. Wow. Okay. So the last thing is just one poem for you. I think I've already hit my 8-9 minutes. I'm sorry. But just give me one last poem. And I wrote this around the time I was starting the festival, and I was driving home somewhere in Massachusetts in the wilds of somewhere, Northampton, somewhere. And I was driving home 3 a.m. and I've been working on this poem for a week. And I usually didn't back then work on poems for a week. But certain ones kind of loop in my head, and that's become something now that I work on poems that kind of loop even for a few years. But I didn't back then. But this one I really worked on back then. So here it is for you. The 27-year-old who made the festival that brought us partially all here. This was what was racking around my brain at that time. And some of you have heard this before. It's called Poem because all my poems are called Poem and not usually titled more than that. Poem. Someone speak for the world and tell me I was made more important than money. Someone tell me it's not over, and it's more important to meet me. Tell me you can still see me, and I was made more important than money. Someone speak for the world and tell me. Someone speak for the world and tell me I was made more important than money. Someone tell me it's not over, and it's more important to meet me. Tell me you can still see me, and I was made more important than money. Someone speak for the world and tell me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, to go back to the old days.
Oh, yeah.
Suzanne. So sadly, we have our last reader of this set. Douglas Rothschild, are you with us right now?
I believe I am.
Perfect. Are you
I'm
ready to
shining the
go?
spotlight in my eyes, just like we do at Zinc Bar.
This is going to be an event. Okay, here we go.
All right. I'm on.
You're on.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Unlike the past, this is the future, and people can live stream in the future when it's not live anymore, which is kind of great. Who the hell is Aaron Kiely anyway? And how did he get Bob Kiely to agree to come to Boston to read for 15 minutes? That's nuts. That's not happening. I mean, Keith and Rosemary, like, sure, look at that list. It's all their students. They'll come up from Providence for that. I mean, it's only like an hour and a half, too, to get to Boston. And then you get to spend a day in Boston. I mean, that's obvious, sure. But Buffalo, I mean, that's the Midwest. But there it was. And Will Alexander, like, he came from LA for 15 minutes of reading. Of course, he read for 45 in an extraordinarily hot room. But, oh well, that happened. After that, I needed a drink. And so did this other guy. Some just total interesting people, but every once in a while, you ended up walking out of the blacksmith shop. And it was as hot as if the blacksmith were still there with the bellows going underneath the spreading chestnut tree. And walked out with this totally intense, complete whack job. And he wanted to find some Moxie. He knew there was a place that had Moxie nearby. And I'm like, that soft drink is extinct. And it's like, no, I know there's a place we can get Moxie. We went to like 3 or 4 different places, and we got some Moxie. It's really good. I was kind of surprised. And the whack job turned out to be Jim Burley, who turned out to be pretty important and kind of great. So from one whack job to another, hey, that was fun. Thanks for the Moxie. And we went back to the room and sat through some more poetry. And once Will Alexander went 30 minutes over, everybody kind of felt a little free and easy with their time limits. Somehow, we managed to finish up. By the time we got to Michael Franco's, the tea was probably not running anyway. So we're out in Somerville. Where the hell was Somerville? And after a pretty great party, probably one of the best poetry parties in the last 50 years, it's time to go. And the tea's been closed for hours. But it's okay. David Hess, he's got a car. He's too drunk to drive. So Dan Bouchard's going to drive us all back. And that's all right, because we're all staying at Dan's. And so me and David and Bill Luoma and Drew Gardner, and yeah, I guess that was it. Maybe Jordan Davis was with us. I cannot remember. Are getting into Hess's hatchback. And Aaron Kiely comes up with Will Alexander in tow. Hey, can you guys give us a ride back to town? I'm like, wow, we're going back to Boston? That's like too many people. And Dan says, we're not going to Boston, we're going to Cambridge. And I'm like, wait, it's a different place? Well, that's a different story, not part of poetry. Not part of the Boston Poetry Festival / marathon / mastodon / mastication / poultry. In any case, poultry massacre, I believe. So we pile in the car. Somehow Drew and David and someone else are crammed in the back seat. I'm in the hatch. Aaron Kiely is sitting in the front seat on Will Alexander's lap, hanging out the window. Yes, a police pulled us over. He found it curious that although the license plate was from Missouri, Dan Bouchard driving the car had a Massachusetts license. This didn't make much sense to him. Dan explained that David Hess in the back was not in the shape to drive. We're poets, yada yada. The officer said, "You're going to have to get those guys out of the front seat. There are too many people in your car." The rest of this story you can read. It's a pretty fabulous story. Dan posted it. It's on the internet. Dan wrote it. He's a great writer. So, first year, pretty memorable. Second year, I think the second year we were at the Art Institute. I remember being in Porter Square. I remember a whole bunch of the same people. I remember they finally asked me to read. That was nice. And then, unfortunately, after Aaron left, there was a moment where apparently Joseph and Donna, there was a vote. You had three coordinators, Jim and Joe and Donna, and I didn't get to go because Jim said, "Let's have Douglas Rothschild read." And they took a vote. Joe said no. Donna said no. It didn't matter what Jim said. Apparently, the whole season, for the first time at the Art Institute, was set up this way. Jim didn't like it much. In the future, the organization changed. I got to come back. We put Jim Burley in a plexiglass display case, carried him on stage. Sean made him read. It wasn't me. Sean's the one who got him to read by threatening to slap him because it was a genius idea. Jim is reading in the plexiglass box. He reads a line. "I thought I was dead, like the great pharaohs of Egypt." And there he is, laying in the box with his arms crossed on his chest, just like a pharaoh in Egypt. I'm just flipping the pages, and it's amazing. It's just a transcendent moment. Sean's recording it, sticking the microphone up inside the glass box next to him. He finishes. We carry him off. Mark Doty's next. Mark Doty doesn't know what to do. He's just splendor blasted, but confused. And he looks out at the audience and asks no one in particular, "What was that?" Poetry, Mark. Great poetry. And then we went to MIT. I'm sorry, Maria. Aaron got speckles of paint all over the stage, and we never got back to MIT. Bill Corbet, who was never around, but was a dark, shadowy figure in the background who made things happen, was disappointed, and he couldn't get us back on the stage because, well, speckled with paint. Those are the memorable moments from early on. We ended up at the Outpost. It was a great room, but it blended everything. It's hard to remember specific things. What year was it at the Outpost that Brendan Lorber did that great reading? I don't know, because there were a lot of years at the Outpost and there were a lot of great readings, and it's in the same room. Andrew was right. Yeah, sitting on the middle of the steps, looking in the room. That was the best seat. The seat on the steps. Though sitting next to Jim Burley was really, really great. At first I did it because it was really super crowded and there was only like one seat left and it was next to Jim. And then I realized, wait, there's an air conditioning vent right here at the end of the piano bench. And I decided to come back the next day and sit there. And I did. And Jim liked it because it kept other people from sitting near him. Jim knew I wasn't going to bother him during the reading. And so I sat there and I was cool. And Jim had a buffer. And that happened year after year after year. And it was fun. I didn't always sit in the front, though. There was a nice seat in the back. Nobody at the Outpost ever figured this out. The seat was always empty because it was partly obstructed view. It was behind the fireplace and right over another air conditioning vent. You didn't have to sit next to the bathroom, Andrew. There was another one along the wall, and I was the only person who seemed to ever know about it, which was nice. Maria Damon always brought fabulous things to eat. I was not always there in time for the cheesecake, but there was always plenty of dried fruit and nuts. Can't go wrong with that. Garrett Lansing. Wow. That was kind of great to just be able to know Garrett. He was so kind. He was so nice. He was so much what anybody could ever hope to be as a person. It's sad that we don't have Garrett. But they're still great people. Look at all the fabulous work that Bridget and Suzanne have done the last couple years keeping this alive, finding a accessible space for people with disabilities. That was pretty fabulous. A nice space downtown in Boston. And finally, the Poetry Marathon was in Boston as opposed to being in Cambridge. Or, I don't know, the Art Institute isn't in, it's Kendall Square. That's not actually Boston, is it either? Maybe it is Boston. I don't know Boston well. I don't even know why there's more than one city in Boston, but there is. Okay, I'm probably near 8 minutes. I don't have any particularly fabulous poem to read because there's the marathon. You can hear all sorts of great poems tomorrow. It's nice that we'll be able to go back and hear things from this year. Maybe we can go and get lunch and then listen to that hour we missed later tomorrow. There'll be poetry for a long time from this year. Nice. I miss everybody. I like standing around in a room full of people who I know their names. That's pretty great. But it'd have to be a really big room this year because I'm not getting any closer than 6 feet away from you. Thanks. Don't have a good way to end this. Oh, yeah, wait. Here.
Thank you. Oh, yeah.
There we
Oh,
go.
yeah. There we go.
Bobblehead. This was made by Allison Cobb and Jen Coleman. It's actually, it's surprising how much I look like Willie Randolph. The Willie Randolph bobblehead. Oh, I missed it. There he goes. Ooh, there, zoom in. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a remarkable evening. Thank you all so much. I'm struck by the flexibility and then the kind of interminability of time as just described at the Outpost. The fact that so many of these memories all seem to weave together in the same place. Oh, and we have another bobblehead making an appearance.
Very nice, Andrew.
Nice.
Lovely. Is that you? It's an Andrew Peterson bobblehead. Nice.
I actually don't let's see.
Oh, a bobblehead in a box. Pristine. Mint condition. Oh, it's Iggy bobblehead. Does it bleed?
Iggy, it's Iggy. Oh.
Iggy is a good place to stop.
Like the Virgin of Guadalupe candle.
Right?
All right.
I actually
Are we gonna get out of Zoom now?
Oh yes, Suzanne, we're still live and streaming.
We're still live and streaming. People
We
need
are.
to see there is a Fresh Kills poetry.
We should probably wrap
Mhm.
pretty soon because we're running overtime and we need to get to the next set pretty soon. So I'll let you wrap up, Christine, and then I
Yes.
will wrap when you're ready to wrap.
We are ready to wrap. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you.
It was an honor.
All right.
you.
See you in the next set.
Thank you.
Love you all.